The Secrets of Doctor Who is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, where we discuss everything about the hit BBC series Doctor Who. And today we're discussing the Fourth Doctor story, The Invasion of Time. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel are Jimmy Akin. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
And Father Cory Sticha. Hi, Father Cory.
How's it going?
Folks, be sure to follow The Secrets of Doctor Who in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're on Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeartRadio. Your favorite podcast app will have us, and on the StarQuest YouTube channel, where you should also hit the bell to get notifications. Stick around to the end of the episode. We've got more of your great feedback that we want to share with you, and tell you about another show on the network you're sure to enjoy, The Secrets of Star Wars. There's all kinds of new Star Wars content coming, and we're talking all about all of it. So check it out wherever fine podcasts are found, or at sqpn.com/Star Wars. But this time, we're talking about this serial, this six-part serial featuring the Fourth Doctor called The Invasion of Time. And just as to set it in the Fourth Doctor's time, this is at the very last story of the fourth season of the Seventh Doctor's time. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Fourth Doctor's time, not seventh. Fourth Doctor's. And the next one will be Horror at Fang Rock, which we've already talked about before. So this is, and we'll talk about all the other things that this is important about this serial. But before we get to that, Jimmy, could you give us a recap of what happens?
The Fourth Doctor has just had a meeting with some mysterious aliens, and companion Leela is concerned. The Doctor takes them to Gallifrey, where he acts very erratically and asserts his prerogatives to become the president of the Time Lords, his election being something that happened the last time he was on Gallifrey in the Fourth Doctor story, The Deadly Assassin. Upon his installation as president, things become clearer. It turns out the Doctor has been conspiring with aliens, a group known as the Vardans, to take over Gallifrey, only it's also apparent this is part of some larger plan on his part. The Vardans partially materialize as big aluminum sheets as part of their takeover, but the Doctor needs them to fully materialize so he can trace their homeworld and shut them out. The Doctor thus continues to help them, even creating a hole in the force field that surrounds the planet, and after he does, the Vardans materialize fully and just appear to be humans. K9 then traces their homeworld and they get kicked off the planet. The Doctor thinks he's won, but then the Centaurons show up. It turns out that the Vardans were just a group of people they were using to get a hole created in the force field around Gallifrey. But they need the hole to be bigger to get their invasion fleet to come through so they can then take control of all of time. The Doctor has the TARDIS patched into the defense system to keep them out. The Centaurons come aboard the TARDIS, and we go deeper into it, seeing areas we've never seen before, all of which look really shabby. The Centaurons are seeking artifacts that the president of the Time Lords is supposed to have, including the Sash of Rassilon, the Rod of Rassilon, and especially the Great Key of Rassilon. The Doctor uses the Great Key to build a dematerialization gun, and he uses that to destroy the Centauran leader. Only he loses his memory of all these events because Rassilon wisely programmed these artifacts so that he would do so. In the end, Leela stays on Gallifrey to pursue a romance she suddenly developed with a Gallifreyan guard named Andred, and K9 stays to take care of Leela, but the Doctor is okay, and we see him flying off in the TARDIS with a box with the label K9 Mark II. The end.
I have many questions.
Yeah, I do too. Like, what were you saying? The next story is Horror of Fang Rock? Because that's a Leela story, and this is Leela's last episode.
I was just going to say that the next story is the beginning of the Key to Time season.
Yeah,
we get to meet Romana 1.
The Ribos operation.
Right. That's what it is. I got these things out of order. Yes. And we haven't actually discussed the previous episode where he was elected president of Gallifrey, so and of the Time Lords. So yeah, I was trying to keep everything straight. It's very timey-wimey, and so I was trying to keep everything straight. This is the problem with the Fourth Doctor, is we're doing him in two different runs, like this beginning of his run and the middle of his run, because there's so much of the Fourth Doctor. So I got a little confused there. So, well, that was the thing, is so there's a story that we haven't talked about where he gets elected. And that was, I was wondering, like, why does, like, he just kind of shows up and says, all right, I'm the president of Gallifrey. And that was kind of confusing to me watching this out of order. But so this happened in a previous story.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Where he goes into the Matrix for the first time, and it's a holodeck, and I just totally love Matrix stories.
At least this one, the Matrix is only just the ring, the crown he puts on his head. We don't actually see the inside of the Matrix this time.
Yeah.
You know, do we know if the movie The Matrix pulled, like, it was an homage or something to Doctor Who? Or, I mean, have you ever heard? Because it just seems kind of coincidental otherwise that they have this imaginary world that's like a holodeck.
They might have taken some influence off of it. I don't know if anything has ever been said that they've gone off of the idea of the Matrix and Doctor Who is what they pulled it from. I mean, obviously the concepts are very similar.
Yeah.
Not exactly, but very similar.
Okay. So the Doctor starts off by making a deal with the Coneheads. We only see them from behind, and we see these like conical, I don't know, seats that they're in. Yeah, so something strange. And we kind of get dropped into it. Like, what's going on? This is very cryptic and secret, and we don't know why the Doctor's doing this. And he's even ordered, like, K9 to prevent Leela from leaving the TARDIS or even looking through the scanner at what's going on outside the TARDIS. And he does this throughout this story where he's constantly trying to get rid of Leela.
Well, yeah, he's also doing this in the beginning. He's doing this ping pong acting where he's zooming between being reasonable and being arrogant and cryptic, and he's bouncing back and forth between these two things. I mean, he'll go from 0 to shouting in 1 second, and I find this annoying. I wouldn't mind it if he was a little bit cryptic, a little bit this way, but he's so over the top in his acting that I find it annoying. Fortunately, that starts to moderate after episode 2. Once the Vardans have partially materialized and he starts confiding in Barusa what's really going on, his behavior becomes more acceptable.
Yeah.
They basically explain it that he was, the Rusin, they can basically read his mind. They have telepathic powers and so on. And so he's fighting against them, and he's able to fight against them, but it putting a strain on him, and that's why he's acting as, and also to put on the show for them. He's taking power and control and telling people where to go and everything.
Yeah, he does have, in his good moments, you've got some Marx Brothers like humor from him, and I like that. But he's just too erratic in this opening, in the opening 2-parters of the 6 parts. This also, as a 6-parter, has some of the 6-parter syndrome. There's a lot of just walking through places and not much happening to advance the plot. The only 6-parter that really avoids that is Evil of the Daleks, which was the Patrick Troughton Second Doctor story that was meant to be the finale of the Daleks. And part of what keeps it interesting is it's like set in 3 different locations. So we spend 2 parts in one location, 2 parts in another location, 2 parts in a third location. So it's kind of like 3 2-part stories. And this has something like that when the Centaurons suddenly show up, because they could have just stopped the plot at the defeat of the Vardans, and it would have been a complete story. But then all of a sudden, now the Centaurons are here and we've got to deal with them, and it becomes much more interesting.
Yeah.
And that was a script suggestion by Robert Holmes, who didn't want to write this story. This was a last-minute replacement. For the end of the season, they were going to do a story on the Doctor's home planet, and originally the one that got proposed was way too ambitious, and they would have never been able to afford it. So they wrote this as a quick last-minute fill-in. And Robert Holmes had just left the series for the time being. He didn't want to write this thing, but he suggested hold back the Centaurons until episodes 5 and 6.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the two most interesting episodes.
Yeah, it really felt to me like this was a 4-parter with a 2-parter tacked on the end.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's because of the Centaurons coming in. Because like you said, there was a conclusion. There was very clear, we're done. Doctor saved the day again. Gallifrey is saved again. Oh, wait, maybe not.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it, as a device to make it a 6-parter, it's a fairly successful one. And the Centaurons are, interesting in themselves as one of the major enemies. Although at this point, this is only, I think, their 3rd appearance in Doctor Who, and they don't show up again until the 6th Doctor's time. I'm pretty sure in the 2 Doctors. So they and they show up a lot, of course, in New Who. So it's kind of interesting to see them here in this. One of the things that's also interesting is we get a lot of Gallifrey. We have a lot of Gallifreyan Time Lord Society. We have a Chancellor in Barusa. We have a Castellan, Kellner.
Mm-hmm.
We have the head of the guards, which is Andred, and Rodan, who is a female Time Lady, who we have not seen many of those at this point till now. And in fact, the first since Susan. In the first Doctor's time. So we get a lot of Time Lord stuff. What is the structure of Time Lord society? They mention cardinals, a council, a president.
So it's not 100% clear, but they have a high council, which has a president. And then there are ordinary Time Lords. And then there's a lot of people who are not Time Lords. In order to be a Time Lord, you have to graduate from the Academy, which the Doctor himself did with 51% on the second attempt.
Of course.
And then you have people who are not members of Time Lord Society, but still live on Gallifrey out in the boonies.
Yeah.
And those people here are depicted as kind of former Time Lords. They're sort of dropout space hippies who decided to get back to nature. But most people have never left the Citadel, which we don't actually see in this. We see it in New Who, where it's a big spherical city under glass. But most Time Lords have never even left that. So Rodan, for example, has never been out of the Citadel before. But there are these people who live outside who are not Time Lords, who are back to the Landers, and they're really sort of the original people that they're the original Gallifreyans that Time Lords developed out of, and they're sometimes called the Sheboygan, and and that term gets used way down the line in reference to Tecteun when Chris Chibnall gets his hands on the show.
Yeah. And there's implications in New Who that the Doctor himself comes from this outsider society, because we recently saw in a 12th Doctor story how he was living on a sort of farm as a kid with a primitive barn, and in that barn also showed up in the War Doctor story as a place that he's familiar with. So there's the implication that the Doctor himself comes from this outsider community.
Right.
So.
And that's different than how they portrayed the Doctor's upbringing in the novels during the hiatus time. Because there's a story, Lung Barrel, that tells about the Doctor's ancestral home, and it's very, very different. It's much more like a Victorian mansion than it is a farm.
Right. And then there's this relationship between the Chancellor Barusa and the Doctor. I assume that all of that began with the Deadly Assassin story that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Barusa is one of the Doctor's former teachers from the Academy.
Okay. And I gather he was a poor student, which is not surprising. But and one of the other big questions I start with is, why did the Doctor make this deal with the Vardans? Like, why didn't he just tell them go pound sand?
Yeah, they don't really give us a clear answer on that. But I think after part 4, they just sort of, I mean, you can always say, well, the Doctor knew that there was a ruse going on here and he needed to go along with it in order to get it sorted out. But he didn't know about the Centaurons part.
Yeah. I mean, because they wouldn't be able to invade if he didn't bring the shield thingy down. So if you know what I mean, it just seems like, well, maybe don't make the deal. You don't have to worry about them at all. But it's the story, I guess. But
yeah, I think they had an explanation, but it went by kind of fast for why the Doctor needed to cooperate.
Okay. And we have, so when he becomes president, there's this ceremony in the Panopticon, which is this basically kind of a throne roomy sort of thing. And he's invested with the sash and the sash
and the rod.
And
he's
rod.
Told his quest is to seek the Great Key.
What is your quest? I seek the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
So, but he gets this circlet, this crown that gives him access to the Matrix. And when he puts it on, he has this really bad reaction to it. Is there a backstory on why he has this terrible thing happen?
Well, no, this is unclear.
Okay.
It's to give us an end of episode 1 cliffhanger.
Okay.
And that's its real function in the story. They then portray it as, is it the Matrix rejecting him? Well, it seems not. They then have a squabble at the beginning of episode 2 about is he the president or not? Is he linked to the Matrix? And apparently he is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The way, I mean, basically, I think you almost have to headcanon what's going on there. And I just thought it was, the Matrix realized that this was everything that was going on.
Right.
And that's why it did it. But again, that's headcanon. There's nothing in the story that says, yeah, this is why that happened.
And then afterward, he's very intent on getting Leela thrown out of the Citadel because she endangers them all. And then he also says that, let's round after he lets the Vardans invade, round up all the most loyal Time Lords who are most likely to endanger the invasion and cast them out of the Citadel. When in reality, what he's doing is he's protecting everybody, the good guys, and getting them out of the way of whatever's going to happen next.
Which, of course, Leela doesn't understand, so she's resisting it the whole time, getting cast out until she finally does get let out by Andred.
Yeah, Leela isn't understanding it and is resisting it up to a certain point. And then magically, she becomes convinced that just turns on a dime and is like, oh, okay, so I can trust the Doctor. This is all part of some plan. I should go along with this. But up to that point, she's just been on the complete other side of it.
Yeah.
Right. And even like at one point where Andred, the guard, is like, just surrender because that's Rodin, I think, was saying it. Just surrender because it's the reasonable thing to do. And Leela's like, no, I'm not surrendering. I don't care if it's reasonable. You don't surrender. She's all, she's being Leela, which is good. So Leela and Rodin end up outside the Citadel, and like you said, Rodin has never been outside. Yes, in one of those.
I thought this was a sand pit.
Yeah, one of those ubiquitous BBC rock quarries, and where they encounter the outsiders, the primitive, society, and rallies them to fight for Gallifrey, which is pretty good with bows and arrows and things, and even like Leela even has to teach others how to use them for more than just hunting. And then we have Andred, the guard, who is a loyalist and who's rallying the loyalists to plot to kill the Doctor because they see think he's a traitor. So we have this whole fun, like, they're coming to get him, but they shouldn't be. They're undermining the plans. So there's we have, I think we have a cliffhanger on that one where the coup fails after Andred is stunned by K9. K9 plays a really big role in this one. Like, he's key to everything. And in fact, at one point, the Doctor puts the circlet, the Matrix crown, on him because, what do you say? The Vardans can telepathically enter the Matrix, and so K9 is the only one who can go in there without being seen. I think that's what he says.
Because he doesn't have a mind. Yeah, he's just a computer.
Yeah,
right.
He just jacked him into the internet is all he did.
Okay. And that becomes key to him finding the Vardan planet so they can block them from coming through, I guess was the idea. Then the Doctor does reveal to Andred what's going on after he stops him from killing him. When they're talking about the Matrix, I love this line. Andred says, "But you have access to the greatest source of knowledge in the universe." And the Doctor says, "Well, I do talk to myself sometimes, yes."
Yeah.
The humility of the Doctor. And meanwhile, the Castellan Kellner is gone full collaborator and is turn type, and it's funny because he's like one of those inept collaborators who is always on the verge of being killed by whether it's the Vardans or the Centaurons for being unable to do the things that they're demanding he does, but then he finds a way to weasel his way forward in this relationship.
Yeah. But by the way, he should look familiar because he's played by Milton Johns, who was in Android Invasion as Guy Crayford, the astronaut who got captured by the androids.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And then he was also an Enemy of the World, Theodore Bennick, which I couldn't remember his role, but
yeah, and those were earlier on. Those
he specializes in playing kind of unctuous, slimy guys.
Typecast. So then the Centaurans show up. They wipe out the Vardans, and they show up and kind of take over the invasion. And like at one point, the Doctor thinks they've won. But it turns out the Centaurans are right behind him, like you mentioned. After the Vardans are gone, and I kept wondering throughout this: is Barusa a good guy or a bad guy? Because there kept being these instances where it seemed like he was opposing the Doctor.
In this story, Barusa is a good guy, but he is played as in a way to keep us guessing about that fact. He's kind of like Skinner in the early episodes, in the early seasons of the X-Files. He is going to turn out to be on the Doctor's side in this story, but they don't want to make that obvious.
Right.
Okay. I do like their conflict.
However, in a later story, he goes full dark side.
Oh yeah. Wow. Now, different. I saw that this is a different actor from the previous Deadly Assassin episode. Will this actor continue on? Because I liked him in this.
I don't believe so. I think next time. No. I think each time we see Barusa, he's regenerated.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So the Centaurans, I was a little unclear on this, but it went at around the fourth, the end of the fourth episode, I think, or beginning of the fifth. The Centaurans try to send the Tardis into a black star, which I guess is a black hole. But the Doctor stabilizes it, which means it can't go anywhere. Like he kind of removes a circuit. And then the Centaurans board the ship. They board the TARDIS to hunt him down. And then we've got you mentioned we have a lot of this running through corridors. And in fact, running through the same corridors and rooms over and over again, which they make a thing out of, like the Doctor's lost and he's going in circles.
Well, and the inside of his TARDIS looks like a bunch of old warehouses and corridors, and
a lot of it was filmed in a hospital. Yeah,
an old abandoned hospital. Yeah. We do see the pool several times. There's a nice big pool room. We probably see more of the ship in this than we have in any other story.
Oh yeah. And as a kid, I loved this. I mean, I know I could tell that, the sets aren't really great, but still just the concept of seeing all these areas of the TARDIS that we've never seen before. That was really cool.
Yeah. They should have done more of that in New Who, frankly, but
yeah. Well, and we get the directions about you take a left and then a right and another left and go up 2 stairs and this way and that way, the confusing directions, and Leela's like, "I'll just find it."
Yeah, don't worry, I'll find it.
And then she can't find it. She's supposed to take them somewhere within she's supposed to take Barusa and others somewhere within the TARDIS. She ends up not finding it and leaving them in a bathroom.
Yeah.
right.
The VIP suite. So the TARDIS has a Lord President suite, apparently.
And There's a whole nother.
And it's got a giant carnivorous plant in it, which eats one of the Centaurons temporarily.
Temporarily.
And it's also got an art museum, which is also its ancillary power station.
Yeah.
Right. The art, like when you turn something off, there's a button on the Venus de Milo that it makes it all dematerialize, it like all disappears, and then
dematerialize, or it's a hologram or something, and of course the ancillary power station is literally just a fuse box.
Yes,
that you just unplug the fuse,
just pull the fuse out, and that turns off something so that they can scan, the Centaurons can scan for life forms. Basically,
the doctor put up some kind of what they call it, biometric shield or something like that, where it's confused the scanner so they couldn't scan for humanoid life.
Yeah, I like the scene where he leads the Centaurn into the carnivorous plant where it grabs him, and only his arm is sticking out. And as the doctor walks by, he shakes the hand. But it doesn't eat him because Centaurons are virtually indestructible except for the port on the back of their neck, which Leela is able to hit with a thrown knife with accuracy.
Yep.
The doctor definitely doesn't have the no-killing ethic turned on this episode, because he tells Leela how to kill a Centauran, which she then immediately does, and he immediately approves. And then he himself builds the dematerialization gun that he uses on the Centauran leader's store at the end of the story.
Yep. Yeah, the body count in this one is high. A lot of guards get killed. A lot of other Gallifreyans get killed in this. I mean, there's a high body count in this story.
But because it's all stasers and so forth, with a little bit of bows and arrows mixed in, it's not bloody at all. It's just, this actor fell over.
Right.
Even the bows and arrows aren't bloody. So
yeah. And that's the thing is, so the doctor he hypnotizes Rodin, the time lady, to build this DMAT gun, which is based on knowledge that K9 got out of the Matrix, and the Great Key is the only way of activating it. And Barusa is like aghast, like with this weapon, you could conquer the universe.
Dude, it's a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all it is a gun, and it'll dematerialize something, but I don't know.
Not a WMD.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was. That felt a little over the top, but
a little. Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, it's a Star Trek phaser set to kill, is what it is.
Exactly. So Storr, the Centauran leader, he's willing at the end, when he sees he's going to lose, he's willing to destroy the Time Lords, the Gallifrey, and the entire galaxy if he's not able to control the power of the Time Lords. And that's sort of the justification for the Doctor shooting Storr with the DMAT gun. So a straight up killing somebody. And for some reason, that shooting Storr makes the gun disappear and leaves the Great Key behind.
Yeah, because apparently Rassilon... So we're given this backstory of Rassilon, one of the original leaders of the Time Lord people, had these artifacts, and he wanted to create a system of checks and balances. And so he gave the president the sash and the rod and the crown that plugs him into the Matrix to wear, but he didn't give him the Great Key. And every president since then has had it as his quest to find the Great Key. And it's always been in the possession, unbeknownst to the president, of his chancellor, which is what Barusa is. And Barusa was just using it as like a key to a drawer in his desk. So it was hiding. Right. It was hiding in plain sight, and the idea was that this would keep a tyranny from developing on Gallifrey, since the president would not have ultimate power. How that really works, it isn't at all clear, but that's the idea anyway. But apparently, Rassilon thought ahead and proposed or implemented procedures that if any person did build the DMAT gun and use it, that his memory would be wiped of what had happened, as an additional failsafe. And this is consistent with other things that Rassilon has done. Rassilon is key to the story The Five Doctors, which is in Peter Davison's Fifth Doctor time. And in that story, Rassilon does something similar. He's got something, people are after a Rassilon artifact, and he's got it booby-trapped in a failsafe kind of way.
Yep.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Doctor. At the end of this, the Doctor has his memory wiped. He doesn't remember anything that's happened from making the deal with the Vardans on, and so he sort of resets to where he was at the beginning, which is interesting. It's an interesting writing gambit, because your main character doesn't remember the adventure, which is kind of funny. And then at the end we have a couple of developments, which is that Leela suddenly has decided that she's in love with Andred, the Time Lord guard, and that she's staying behind. She's not going with the Doctor, which is kind of interesting. I guess the actress Louise Jameson had decided to leave the show at this point.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And it hadn't been clear if she was going to leave. And so it was a little bit last minute, and that's why her relationship with Andred is underdeveloped. So it kind of comes out of nowhere. She's just, oops, companions suddenly fell in love off screen, and now they're leaving.
Right. That's too bad. I liked Leela.
Yeah.
I mean, she's kind of a fun counterpoint to as a primitive, more savage female companion to the Doctor's, whatever the Doctor is.
No, Leela's great. Frankly, I like Leela better than Sarah Jane. Leela is much more interesting.
Oh, interesting. I like Sarah Jane, but yeah, maybe. I mean, it would have been interesting to see her with, say, like Nyssa, who's very different. It would have been an interesting pairing, but yeah. So, and then K9 stays with Leela, K9 Mark 1. Okay, can we explain a little bit the variations on K9? Because then the Doctor pulls out a box in the console room labeled K9 Mark II.
Yeah.
So what's going on with K9?
Well, okay, so the original K9 was not built by the Doctor. The original K9 was built by Professor whatever his name was in the 51st century or whenever.
Yeah.
And was given to the Doctor. And then when that K9 stays on Gallifrey, the Doctor builds a new K9. And the Doctor has built like three different, or not built three different, but had three different K9s over the course of time.
Yep.
Okay.
And I this is something I remember from years ago, and I forgot to look it up, but I believe the reason why they made this change is because they actually rebuilt the K9 unit for filming. They were having trouble with the K9 Mark 1 because the lights and the cameras and everything would actually interfere with the radio control. K9's a remote control, basically, car. And they were having trouble with that. And so they completely rebuilt the unit. And this was their excuse on screen why next season the dog changes.
It looks different. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was there, I see a reference in the TARDIS wiki to an Australian TV series that features K9.
K9 later gets spun off in his own series.
Oh, okay. Yep. But it was only in Australia. That's interesting.
And then there was K9 and Company was an attempt at that, and that was just a pilot that didn't go anywhere, a Christmas pilot that didn't go anywhere. But that was where Sarah Jane ended up with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's how Sarah Jane ended up with K9, who was then in school reunion
with the
episode.
10th Doctor. Yeah.
And I believe that's technically K9 Mark III, if I remember.
Oh,
that's not
be.
Mark II, that's Mark III. So there's like a third K9 there, and then
that sounds.
And then there's a cartoon or kind of a kid show where there's a future K9 that floats and things like that.
So right, CGI animated.
Yeah, there's a Mark 1, Mark 2, 3, 4, 5, the 10th Doctors, Irving Braxtels, I don't know who that is, and then a couple others that are mentioned, and probably in Big Finish and in secondary media and that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of K9 around.
There are. Also, it's complicated by the fact that the robot regenerates.
Right, of course he does. Time Lord companion. So I think that brings us to the end of the story. Anything else that I missed that would you like to bring up and to discuss, Father Cory?
I get a kick out of, they were very on the nose with the name of the Centaurn strike force. It was the SSSS.
Yeah.
Yes.
Double the SS. I like that at one point when Rodon is working on the TARDIS, ask for a Finkelgruber.
Yeah, I was going to comment on that.
What's
and
that
the doctor
reference to?
gives her a Finkelgruber.
Yeah, whatever the Finkelgruber is, it was a tool that she needed. But it's just, you gotta love, they had to have, they had some fun obviously with the script in this one.
Yeah.
It was the humor was good. At the time of this story, the modern TARDIS was the 706, the Type 706. So the TARDIS is really, really old as a Type 40.
Right. They mention how old it is. It's an obsolete version.
Yeah, it hasn't been used in centuries, they said. So, and then I kind of laughed. The Castellan was supposedly not an engineer, but then he comes up with an engineering solution to whatever the Centaurons wanted. So,
right.
And that's all I got.
Jimmy?
Oh, there's nothing more useless than a lock with a voice imprint.
I want to program my Echo or my HomePod to be able to respond to that.
Yeah. Use that to unlock your door.
Yeah. Only Doctor Who fans, true fans, can get into my house.
Also, at one point, the Doctor is whistling the Colonel Bogey March.
Yep.
Yes.
There were little things, but we've covered the substance.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, the Colonel Bogey March is like, you might have heard it in Bridge of the River Kwai or
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or other movies like that.
Da-da, 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 da-da. That one. Yeah.
Yeah. So awesome. Well, so I mentioned that we would have some feedback, and we've got some feedback here from our YouTube channel. Arvis Conti commenting on our episode 278 on the Big Finish story with the Ninth Doctor, Sphere of Freedom. And Arvis Conti says, thanks for covering more Big Finish productions. I gravitated towards listening to more Big Finish Doctor Who after the first season with the 13th Doctor and have really enjoyed what I've been listening to. You're welcome.
Very good.
Yeah, it's as we're wrapping up a lot of the TV Doctors, we're kind of turning more towards some Big Finish stuff to have, because there's tons of good Big Finish stories to talk about, and so we'll be doing more of those. And I keep saying keep an eye on the BigFinish.com website because they're constantly having sales on this stuff, and so if you look at the main run stories that feature the Doctors themselves, especially the actors who were the Doctor on TV, and you see those on sale, pick them up because we're probably eventually going to be talking about them.
Yep.
So it'll
And
be
usually
worthwhile.
about half off. I recently picked up a bunch of the Sixth Doctor stories, and they were half off. Like $140 worth of stories for $70. So
Right, and that's a lot of
great way to do
stories. Yeah,
yeah, it is.
It's cheap
10 or 15 stories or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, they've had $2 stories and $4 stories and that sort of thing. So definitely worthwhile to pick those up. All right. So I think that about does it for our discussion. We would like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Doctor Who, including Eric T, Jamie J, Dawn G, Jordan S, and Maximilian S. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Doctor Who and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. And we'd also like to thank Victor Lambs, who edited this episode for us. So that's it from us. We would love to hear what you think of the Fourth Doctor story, The Invasion of Time. You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com, at the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page, send an email to drwho@sqpn.com, or visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord and join the Secrets of Doctor Who channel. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the first Doctor story, The Chase. Until then, Father Cory Sticha, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Doctor Who.
Thank you, Don.
Jimmy Akin, thank you as well.
Thank you, but there's nothing you can do to prevent the catharsis of spurious morality.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Doctor Who on StarQuest. And remember, there's no point in further discussion. The discussion is for the wise or the helpless, and I am neither. And I'll miss you too, Savage.